Well, first of all, good evening. I must admit I'm really disappointed of not being able to be at the event tonight. The idea for me to be up there really was to talk about West Villa FC Club. I was working for Nike at the time, and one person walked into my office and said, "Tony, I want you to coach a soccer team. Soccer's getting big here now, and the clubs are getting bigger and they're getting quite expensive. And so there's a lot of players who really can't get onto these teams for a number of reasons." And we decided to do it. Younger kids' parents came to me and asked me if I would be interested in starting a little club along the same lines. With the likes of a Dan Fink and a Tom Chown and a Rick Calvert and my dear friend Keith Dodson, we founded West Villa. What we decided to do was, if the kid was good enough, he was going to play, whether he had the money or not. Every kid in the club and the parents had to be involved with every fundraiser that we did. But that was the idea of trying to raise money, and so that these kids could play without worrying, or their parents without worrying about paying for it.
OYSA is comprised of a very small group of people doing wonderful things for thousands of children. Nobody does this for the lucrative paycheck. They do it for the love of the game and for the love of the children in our community.
Oregon Youth Soccer has provided a big platform for kids, recreational players going into competitive and then going into playing at higher levels.
Great deal with Oregon Youth Soccer, bringing coaching clinics and leagues and what they do to make soccer available to all these kids in the state of Oregon is, you know, my hat's off to all the people that have been involved over the years.
One of the things I enjoyed about and recognized with the state organization is how much they valued the educational process and good coaching to do what's best for the kids. OYSA is the foundation for every club in this state.
I really appreciate OYSA's effort and contribution to coaching education, because better players come from better coaching. And OYSA, in the 29 years that I've seen, has made a very strong effort to provide better coaching education opportunities.
Coaching education and player development are ongoing things, that you never finish that work, and you just hopefully get better at it. This association, like many others, has gotten much better at both of those things.
In the early days, it was difficult to find coaches. There weren't coaches. There weren't paid coaches. There were volunteer coaches. We had to train the coaches. We had to train referees. There were no referees. So Oregon Youth Soccer was principally involved in training referees and coaches and helping develop the infrastructure that the clubs took forward and developed themselves. So really, Oregon Youth Soccer provided the background and the information and the structure to advance soccer to where it is today in Oregon.
And just seeing the people that are involved, the volunteers, the parents that are involved in the growth of soccer at the grassroots level. I think with Oregon Youth Soccer, I think their biggest impact is licensing. You had people like Jimmy Conway, Mike Smith. I think for Oregon Youth Soccer, it's giving a service, servicing the players, servicing the families. I think that's the most important thing that they can do. And then obviously for the coaches, giving them the opportunities for coaching education to improve as coaches. And
I think that Clive and Jimmy and Mike form part of what I term the DNA of the OYSA, which is something to be proud of, because it makes this state somewhat unique.
I went to my first ever soccer clinic, and a fellow by the name of Jimmy Conway showed up. And at that clinic, I started to fall in love with soccer right there, because Jimmy lit a fire in me that I could work with kids, which I love to do, coach them in a sport, and make it very enjoyable and fun, and know that the ownership of the game really belongs to the kids. He was my mentor, my first mentor, my greatest mentor, and I was proud to be his protege over the years.
A couple great things that have happened that I've experienced was Jimmy was teaching a crossing activity to play the ball in the corner and cross it over into the middle of the field, and one of the coaches runs over and kicks it out of bounds, and then he, same kind of thing. He throws another ball at him and says, try that again, and goes and whips a ball in, puts it out of bounds again, and this guy turns around to Jimmy and says, I'd like to see you do that. So Jimmy goes, okay, so he runs in the corner, looks at the corner, and puts the ball in the penalty spot like 4 times in a row, and that coach stopped talking after that. It was quite funny. Great experience.
My first involvement was with Jimmy Conway when I went to the office. This in 1989, and Jimmy was working the front desk as the only employee for OYSA. I was able to work with him in Oregon ODP, and at one point he and Clive Charles and I sat in a hotel room for an hour, and my most impactful time as a coach. I learned a ton from both those guys, and obviously both of them have this legacy within Oregon soccer, and just a huge moment for me and a sense of pride to have that experience with both those two.
In Clive and Jimmy, you had 2 people who arguably did more for soccer in the state of Oregon than anybody else. Clive in different perspectives, certainly at University of Portland primarily, and Jimmy with the OYSA, Oregon State University, Pacific University. Their body of work was truly phenomenal, and they were part of the catalyst for growth of youth soccer. I think the OYSA was fortunate to have chosen those 2 to start with. I know them personally.
I think the other part that has been really exciting for us as a community is we've had a lot of very successful women's players that have come through our programs in Corvallis. Kelly Cronkite comes to mind. She played for the national team, youth national team, and she played at U of P, and she became a very, very good coach, and she's now in town and has a family and coaches from time to time. But the piece that's super exciting to me is as the women's game's grown and the girls' game's grown, the coaching pool of women coaches has grown tremendously.
In early days, it was very difficult to find a soccer field to play on. Look at today, we have complexes.
Today, our kids are so fortunate to play on the fields they were on. Water doesn't splash like it used to in puddles, out of puddles, and you don't slide in the mud like you used to. So soccer has evolved in a variety of ways, and I think that all starts with the state foundation, which is OYSA.
When I think about OYSA 50 years from now, at first I think about all the technical and tactical things and the improvements we can make, but the reality is the most important thing is enjoy the game and enjoy the moments.
I think this 50th year anniversary is very important, and it's wonderful, and I'm glad it's being done because it gives everybody a moment to go back in time and see where it all started and get a feel for how hard people worked from the very beginning. Jimmy Conway and his staff, people out on the fields, the people in the office who are wonderful. Players today have no idea how much has been invested into soccer in this state.
I hope you all have a great night. I'm sure you will. But I hope to see a lot of you next year when the 50th year gala is being held by the Portland Timbers. Thank you very much for letting me speak a little bit out there. And again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. As I say, have a great night.
Within the next 50 years, I hope we develop good enough players and enough players to create a World Cup championship team. Would be outstanding.
Congratulations, Oregon Youth Soccer, on 50 exceptional years, and bless you for all you've done for the kids and the coaches and the soccer lovers of this state. I wish I could be with you to help celebrate this, but unfortunately I'm not able to be there this evening, so please know you're in our thoughts and prayers, and you will be appreciated greatly and deeply. Thank you.